I am joined today, as ever, by Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hi, it is great to be here. Good to see you.
As we talk about all things sensory health, now, I thought before we even get into this, I keep hearing the words neurodivergent, which to me just doesn't make any sense. Like, where's that word come from? Was it always there? Is it a new word? Is it a made-up word? Where's that come from? Probably because of my own ignorance, but can you just explain what's neurodivergence all about for people like me?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, over the last number of years, it has definitely become it's an all-encompassing word, I think, for people who recognize that there are differences that they experience in life, but so it generally covers people who are autistic, have ADHD, who may have other differences in their processing, in their nervous system, as in their neural system, not as in anxiety because of anxiety, but because of their nervous. It's always that funny word about the nervous system. What do people understand about it? What I mean by the nervous system and what the neurodivergent community mean is that our pathways and the way that our brain connects, there are differences in the way that our neurons are connecting, and therefore the way that we perceive the world and understand the world and respond to the world is different. In many ways, we really are all neurodivergent. It's a funny thing. It's another word. But it's helpful for some people to have something to try and explain that their behaviors might be a little bit different, or there may need to be a little extra compassion given to them or understanding because they won't pick things up the way that other people do, or they won't be able to communicate things as well as other people do. But it is a general, all-encompassing term for people who consider there are some differences that are worth pointing out to the rest of the society and community.
I'm conscious sometimes that, I mean, I think I may be coming across a bit ignorant on that one, but I didn't know. And I've heard all these people using this word for a number of things, but that's when it's great to come to someone like you and say, what is this word really meaning? Which is what you just been explaining. Because otherwise we can feel a bit like, is this like a really serious thing? Do I need to know about this? Does it matter? Is this a fad? Because we've seen that as well. It's really just a way of collecting together people who struggle with. So I suppose they're not like physically disabled in that kind of careful bit. It's the traditional understanding of physically disabled. It's not like that. You can't see them with a walking stick or a wheelchair. Okay, we can see immediately there's something that is difficult for them physically, but this is not the same, is it?
And there's also the big debate as to whether it should fit under mental health or not, because it is part of the brain's processing, because it doesn't affect traditionally, it doesn't affect the physical health. It doesn't affect the physical body in that way. And then people are thinking, should it fit under mental health? Because it does affect how people perceive things, and it does lead into other issues that may have, but it's not really technically a mental health issue either. It is and that's why the term has come up. It's a neurodivergency. And that's where I'm bringing absolutely to the fore sensory health, because neurodivergent or folk who would class themselves as neurodivergent will highly likely, probably about 90% will have some sensory issues. There may be an extra 10% that will have mental health issues in the traditional sense. But they are going to be impacted in the world. But no, they would not be classed as physical health, and technically are not classed as mental health issues either. Although we understand that anxiety and depression and all of that is part and parcel of a lot of people's experience of being neurodivergent.
Which is one of the reasons why I don't like being put in a box, because it's very easy to say, oh, that's a mental health problem, that's a physical health problem. And I can understand it from a sort of governmental perspective of put some money into mental health, put some money into physical health, and we can help people with broken legs at hospital, and we can help people with mental health. But maybe we think that's not quite so important as a physical health, or however they're going to kind of divvy up the money. But of course, it actually, more than anything else, demonstrates the fact that you cannot isolate a bit of someone's health from another, which is the very reason why I really struggle with dentistry being taken out of the NHS classically years ago here in the UK. Because if you don't if you can't eat and you can't swallow, you've got pain, what are you going to do? Straight to the NHS, A&E, I'm in pain, help me. So even that, obviously, very, very evidently is part of our health. And if we can't chew, then we can't eat properly food. That's going to affect our nutrition. It's going to affect our mental health, it's going to affect our sensory health. And it is absolutely, completely interconnected.
Yeah, it is. And my husband, speaking from a very personal perspective at the minute, is up 2 to 3 times a night. He has pain back again. We thought it was addressed through a tooth issue, had a tooth extraction, and yet that hasn't got to the root of what the issue is. So we're back with severe pain, and everything that you've just described is exactly, what we're going through at the minute. And it's like, and yet this is something that we have to pay for every single time, and that's tough. Because it's pain is huge.
Pain is pain, and pain is physical.
Mm.
So that's why I've always thought, I'm not sure splitting out dentistry is such a good idea, because immediately it's affecting the physical, which affects the rest of the NHS. So you can split it off, but it's, our teeth are in our mouths, aren't they? I mean, it's been really obvious. Our teeth exist in the gums, in our mouths, in our head. It is part of our physical being.
It is, and we should do sensory health free sensory health free dentists and dentistry, because there are loads and loads of the families that I work with that really struggle with going to the dentist. But that's for whenever seems an appropriate time to do that one.
You're mentioning teeth, and now I'm checking my teeth with my tongue. Interesting little thought. Now we have one question that's come in, which is very specific to, I would guess, I'm going to call it warmer environments. In the UK, we have an aircon unit in our studio, which operates, I don't know, 3 days a year. I mean, we honestly, in the UK, we don't have that much heat that frequently to necessitate it. We do, because we've got a bunch of computers in a small room and it's hot. And it gets unbearably hot. So we have a little aircon unit. But this is a question on aircon. During the summer, we often switch on fans and air conditioners, and I find the constant whirring or hissing or blowing quite tiring. In fact, it's quite a relief when they get turned off. Why is this?
Oh, that's a really interesting one, because I am opening up a centre here. And one of the questions that I asked the air conditioning guy, because we know that temperature is so crucial, and for people to be able to choose and set their own temperatures according to what suits them, because I have a private space. If you're in a public or in an office, it's much harder. You've got to negotiate that with your colleagues. But one of the first questions was, how noisy is it? So we've chosen one where the noisy thing is outside, and the quiet unit is on the inside of the building. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to make sure that we can minimize those things, because it's a combination of the tactile system being affected potentially by the blowing air. And what it does is it's like light touch, and that can be quite alerting and disorganizing and quite annoying. But it's the whirring is that low frequency, constant noise that the brain doesn't habituate to. That's what we are looking for. That's where many of our neurodivergent individuals find it difficult with auditory processing, is that it's that constant sound that is always there that most of us will switch off over time, and they can't. So their brain is constantly paying attention, and using up energy, using up resources, using up its brain power to process this or this whatever that sound that is going on a regular basis. So that's probably why it is exhausting, because their brain is not switching off. So there are a couple of things that we would do to try and help. Do you reckon they're listening? Should we go into some things that would
Let's go for it.
help on this regard? Well, if you can't naturally, you can't switch it off if you're in that office environment, and that is something that someone has decided that they want to do. But we need to replace the sound. If you can't change that sound, if you can't change the settings, if you can't put padding around it, if you can't isolate your own particular area with soundproofing to try and stop the sounds actually coming into your area, you could potentially put see-through screens around your desk or the environment that you're in. But other than that, it's going to putting AirPods in so you are listening to background music, something that's really quiet. So you're still going to be able to hear what is going on with people around you, but it's going to give your ears something else to listen to that's slightly higher frequency, and possibly even the highest frequency that you can feel comfortable with actually stimulates more creativity and thought. And the lower frequencies are much more draining. can be much more organizing for the body. I use a lot of frequencies in a therapeutic sense. But if you're listening to music, try and at least give you something that's a little bit higher frequency and then that the highest possible. But give your ears something else to listen to very quietly, rather than that constant whir that it sounds as though that they are listening to.
So sort of a distraction for your own self from the very thing that's distracting you.
Yeah, because you're not consciously aware that it's distracting you, but your brain is attending to it.
Okay.
When you feel the relief, you only know that your brain is actually attending to it if you feel the relief when it's switched off. And that's exactly what that person was saying. It is. And then you think, yeah, that was something. Most of the time we cope with a whole range of things, and it's only when something is taken away, and if we get that sense of relief, that's when we get the awareness that it was actually something that was taking more resources than we were aware of. So
Joe and I were doing our usual 3-hour Sunday show. It was very hot. We had the aircon on and we needed it because it's literally too hot. We'd have had to give up on the radio show. Not going to do that. But what we discovered was by the end of the show, a couple of things. One, we had to turn up the headphones quite a bit. So what we were hearing was louder because it's obviously needs to overwhelm the noise of the wearing away. And when the actual refrigeration part kicks in, it's much noisier. It's not audible on the microphones because they're very good. I need more of a microphone brain, I think, because it can't pick it up, but I can. But we found we were quite tired. And part of that was having to talk louder over the sound of the motor. Now, whilst that can't be heard on the radio, we're having to talk louder because we're sitting opposite each other, and we're only other side of a monitor, but we can't hear each other quite so clearly. So we're talking louder, which is more tiring. But I guess what we're talking about is when you're thinking of those folks for whom anything like that is really, really intensive. Well, that's just what we go through when the aircon's on, because now we're talking louder. Now we're more tired because we're physically doing not much more, but we are doing something more.
Yeah. And that is a really key thing. And so for you, if it were going to be something that you would need it on a more regular basis, or you had something else that was noisy, it would be seeing if someone could gift you so that you could get a better quality air conditioning unit. So the likes of the noisy thing would be outside the house or outside your studio, and then the actual quieter interactive bit would actually be within your household, so you can benefit from the cool without having the noise that comes along with it.
I do know sometimes when it's sort of dropped towards the end of my show and I turn it off, there is that okay, everything goes quiet. And it's funny how much less tiring it is once we switch the unit off.
Yeah and that's a really good example of what getting the right living in sensory health, so that you don't ever get to that point of feeling or the sense of relief. There should just be a lovely I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a place, a phase, a way of being that is just really nice. So you don't ever need the feeling. You never need to feel a relief that something has stopped or that something has started. You're just in that good place for as long as you can possibly be throughout the day and through the night. That's the ultimate. That's what we're looking for from a sensory healthy perspective.
Cool. Okay. Well, there's your answer if that was your question. You can send your questions to us, by the way, for Anne. We haven't finished yet. But if you have got a question like that one, then you can email us hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org. And on we go to sensory healthy something. And so today's little topic, which I thought could be quite fun, because this definitely affects every single one of us, if we're over the age of 18 in the UK at least, which is healthy sensory banking.
Yes.
Which is transformed. So when I was at school, at A-level, the sort of extent of online banking was writing a check. That's about as close as you got to the online virtual thing. You were writing checks. So we were taught in school, this is how you write a check. Now, that's about as virtual as you could get. It's pretty much the same, but of course now it's on your phone. So now if you're on your bank to access your money, you've now got to get a text message on your phone, no internet banking. That's gone. So I thought we could look at internet banking, sort of virtual payments, if you like, and also going to a bank.
Yeah.
Because I remember going to banks when there were lots of bank robberies, and every bank put big screens everywhere, like security screens, and you were sort of talking through these stupid little microphones and thinking, I'm no, can't understand you. And they get frustrated and you get frustrated thinking, could you just talk? Just put your face down and talk to the great because it's easier than this stupid thing. I remember that as well, very clearly. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Now that you say it, I mean, like, when I went into the bank, it's just that personal touch is quite remarkable. But as you say, so very, very different from that perspex, the
Yeah.
box that you were presented with, and the microphone. As you say, that whole auditory experience was just awful. Um,
And useless.
yeah, and useless. So, and it was like just like personal touch. So going in, and it says, "Oh, help yourself to a tea and coffee." So you go, but you're standing there. So the whole sitting down doesn't really happen very much. So you have to be good. You know, you have to be strong in your proprioceptors and be able to tolerate standing. Except for then, once you've given your name, there isn't. Well, certainly in the bank that I go to, there is an area where you can go and sit. You can go and help yourself to teas and coffees, which is beautiful. Which is a really lovely thing. Visually, they've got some nice knick-knack things, so it's a lot more feeling like more homely. So they've worked really, really hard with the plants, and they even had recipe books when I was there. And just so you sit down in this nice area and thinking, this really is not banking, yeah, as I grew up with it, and totally open booths. Um, but what was lovely was that the actual the shape of where you went to sit with an advisor when the time was right was cocoon shape. And I thought that's really interesting. And it was also, it went up over my head and around my body. So it was feeling very safe, very secure, very private, even though one side of it was completely open. And I thought that's a really interesting design. So to feel very protected. So tactile wise, you would be totally protected. Visually, you are screened, but you're cocooned in it. But you're not feeling claustrophobic because it's one side is completely open to anybody passing by and anything else like that. But it was it was a very interesting experience and definitely very different from banking as was.
So in our major city, I go to the main bank, and it's exactly like you say. Not quite the nice cocoon things, but it's all open plan. There are seats if you want to have a little rest. There's a little thing with the stupid pens with a chain on them that don't work. Yeah, they got those as well. And then there's another branch of exactly the same bank, which is closer, or it used to be, and they've got the glass thing still. And I don't go there because I don't like it. I
Mm,
feel like right, so you don't actually want me to be near you. Why
right.
is this called a personal bank? I don't. And
Mhm.
it's interesting how that piece of see-through glass can be such a negative. So when I went into the main branch in the big city, I thought, well, this is better. I can actually see them for real, and we can actually talk, and I actually hear what they're saying. And it was a completely different thing. And of course, air conditioned, so it was lovely and cool. The other one, no aircon, bit hot.
Right, right. Yeah. And smaller, depending on how enclosed you feel, how bright it is. Mine was beautifully bright as well. They've got very, very clever lighting in all the right places. Auditory wise, it was very quiet. So again, it was cool, it was quiet. But but totally personal, not impersonal at all. It's very, very, they've worked hard on the kind of caring, nurturing side of it, looking at the sights and the sounds. I don't think I smelt anything in particular that I was aware of. Some of the places I'm very conscious when I go in, I think, oh yeah, they've worked hard on the smells. Going through airports is a completely different thing because you are utterly overwhelmed by all the smells. But that's sensory healthy. Sensory healthy travel is something that we can continue on and look at airports and the way that they've designed those and things that they've done there from a sensory perspective. But yeah, no, the banks, the sights, the sounds, the amount of time. Yes, you have to stand to go in, but then you can sit while you're waiting, and they care for you while you're waiting, and then try and help you speed through as best you can after. But that impersonal, or that just even the sense of plastic getting in the way of those basic things that you wouldn't even be touched. Not that someone does touch you in a bank, but the fact that you can't be even near, or you can't have that tactile connection. It causes a massive barrier, literally and physically and sensory wise.
It makes me wonder though if one of the members of the branch goes to the little, it's a small branch basically with the big all the glass fronted stuff, if they go from there and then go to the big one in town because they're covering for somebody else, I wonder how they're feeling now they're not protected. Because for them, it's a daily occurrence. I mean, it's protected glass, bulletproof booth. I'm completely safe. No one can hurt me. But then they go to the main branch where they're completely open to everybody. I also was thinking, just as you were talking, I wonder how they feel going from one to the other, or vice versa, of going back from an open plan to the little booth that's all bulletproof glass and all the rest of it. That might feel quite claustrophobic.
It could, or someone would absolutely love it, and it's the best thing ever because they know they're not. There is no way nobody's going to touch me. If they're kind of overreactive, which is one of the things in the touch system, one of the things that we look at for sensory processing and integration. If they are sensitive in any way, shape, or form, whether it be from the sights or the sounds and the smells and the touch, having a little booth to themselves is heaven. It's like they control their environment. They've probably got their right temperature that they want in there. Nobody's going to touch them unexpectedly. They're totally in control of the auditory input that comes in, and it really is the best place for them to be. So yeah, on the one hand, that's where you've got to find the right sensory fit when it comes to finding your work environment, tweaking it, changing it, taking the authority and making it work for you is what I seek to empower people to do, whether they're at home or in school or in the workplace.
Two things that occur to me. One is the thing I always say about banking, which is we forget they're businesses. First, middle, last, they are a business out to make money. You need to have them, but they're not your best friend. They can't be because they're trying to make money. That's how they function. That's why you get interest paid. It isn't just, appearing out of the sky. They're actually using your money to make money. So it's a business. And I think all the stuff you're talking about, how they have tried to make it more friendly and more comfortable, which is a good thing. And yeah, absolutely should be. It's just we have to be cautious and remember the reason why they want us to be comfortable is probably because they want to sell us something, because we forget. I think I don't, but I think many of us do. Banks are not your best friends. They are a very needed, very important part of life, but also they are first and foremost a business.
Yeah, because that's not where we go to initially. We think it's something that we need. It's very well done.
Yeah.
And it is something that we need, but it's kind of like we always think, oh, they're there for us, whereas actually, yeah.
But the other thing I was thinking about was the internet banking side of banking, because now when you go, you probably get to speak to somebody. Maybe our bank switched to English people again, or at least British, because they went through a phase of pushing that out to India, which makes sense from a financial point of view. But they had so many complaints from people who said, I don't understand what they're saying. Now, that's not even close to racism. That's just saying, I don't know what they're saying. They're speaking in a really foreign accent. They don't know even basic English words some of the time. And a lot of banks have followed suit and thought, oh, we're losing lots of customers. And they switched back to British-based folk. I think, was it a tax office? I often got folk in Northern Ireland. They're brilliant. The diction of the Northern Irish is just phenomenal. Can we all please have call centers based over there? Much better. Understand every single word. And it also sounds lovely. But even that can be frustrating. So I had to ring up my bank one time. They thought I had a dodgy transaction because I made 2 transactions. Oh, that's a bit dodgy. So they stopped my card and I had to ring up. It was all fine. But it was really nice to get somebody who understood every single word I said. And that's another part of what I'm thinking about is the interaction with the bank when we have no choice. We've got to ring them. We've got to be in contact. They do need to understand our primary language, which we are English. Therefore, English is the first language. That's the language they need to be able to speak very, very fluently. But when I was ringing up and getting people in, particularly India, and they didn't understand my language, and usually with finance, it's stressed because it's my money and I'm already, in a heightened state of awareness or perhaps anxiety. And when you're shouting because they don't understand you, and this is the only way to fix the problem, that's why I think a lot of banks were losing customers. Because when you do need it, which is very rare, I mean, I think I've had to phone my bank probably twice in about 10 years. But when you do, you're usually in a heightened state of anxiety because you need to pay a bill and you can't, or there's a direct debit's been cancelled because they're trying to protect you and all the rest of it. That's great, but it's still my money. And so that can get us really anxious.
Yeah, yeah, I think the language, the auditory processing, because again, auditory processing, when you are anxious, when there is those stress levels, those arousal levels in your system, your ears aren't as like you've even got in the inside of your ear when the sound goes into it. There is a muscle that helps your little ear bones transmit the sound. from the inside of your ear to into the brain. And in tension, that muscle doesn't work as muscles do. It's like any kind of tension. If we hold it in our muscles, then we don't, people feel it in their backs, eventually. And there's other things we don't function as well. And it's the same, any form of stress is also going to affect our auditory processing. And then when you've got to try and pay attention to somebody else's language that is different to yours, and you're trying to understand what's going on and you're trying to communicate, and it's not happening, it does compound the whole situation. So I totally understand that would not be, you just want somebody with an accent and with language that you are able to understand. And that, again, that is nothing about racism. That is nothing about anybody's, it's not a judgment call at all. It is just a literal, this is fact. We need to speak clearly, and we need to be understood, and we need to understand them. It's like that simple when we're communicating about things that are important in that way.
I mean, it should be that simple. And it's much more simple than it used to be. I think it's fair to say. But this is the thing about the internet banking, is as soon as you're talking about money, finance, banking in a branch online, you're talking about your money, which belongs to you, which they're looking after for you. And it's like so many things. I think there was a time when perhaps they forgot the reason why they have money is actually because we've let them have it. We're not winning it back. This is ours. But actually, it does create more stress and strain just because it's finance and it's money. And normally, if you have to go to the bank, it's in the statement. If you have to go to the bank, it's usually not a great thing. I mean, maybe you've got £1,000 check and you want to put it in the bank, and that's great. But mostly you're going to pay bills or resolve an issue. And we've had two of those, maybe a decade or something. So it's not often we've had problems, never our fault, but you still have to go and sort it, which means you're frustrated, you're losing time, and this sense of anxiety before you even get there. How much of a fight is it going to be? And then to be told, well, you've got to do this online, but I'm in my branch. So then there's a lack of comprehension on our part, I suppose. The banks are saying, can't help you. Got to make a phone. I walked into a bank. I want to set a bank account for my son. Can't help you. But you're the main branch. Yes, but we can't set up an account. So how do I get an account? You need to book an appointment with us. Well, can't you do that? No, you need to phone up to do it. But I'm stood here. That's the diary. Ah, yes, but that's the system. You've got to ring up. And they refused. Wow. I had to make a phone call to the same desk when I got home and calm down to book an appointment to go and set up an account. And it was really annoying. That's going back a little while, but that's where I think they forget who they're serving. That getting political.
And yeah. I was thinking while you were talking also just about when you were talking about going in and putting a check. And I used the app recently, and I thought, goodness me, that the amount of coordination that you need. So you need to have really good sensory health to be able to kind of like position that over the check, get it where you need to, and then take the photograph and then work out the processing and the sequencing that you have to do if you are trying to do it yourself. And the whole point of having a branch is that they should be able to help you with all these things, like booking an appointment, like whatever. Because if we expect people to be too tech savvy or too tech minded or have the tech at home, then that's not a good service. If we have branches, they should be should be for a reason, to have that personal touch and do whatever you need to do face to face.
Yeah, I think I suppose a bit like supermarkets, they're trying to push you to the lower cost self checkouts. You get all sorts of things you can do in the bank. You can deposit checks, you can deposit cash, you can take out cash, and that's all great. But I remember standing in lines when these were quite new and coming in, and anybody who was standing in line, are you here to deposit a check? Yes. Can I get you over to this machine? And I would say no. I've come in here for a reason, because I want to see someone to deposit the check, because I don't trust the machine for no other weird reason than if I hand it to someone, it's much simpler, and that's why I'm paying you for. That's why we have a bank account in the first place. So I was always a bit pushy back. No, thank you, I'm good. And no, they can't force you, but the check thing is an interesting one. So I've had a few checks over the years. You take a photo, no, background's not clear. But I'm not a professional photographer. How do I know what you want? I immediately go for black surfaces, and that seems to be even worse than a white wall. So yeah, it does require a level of technological comprehension and resourcing, almost with the right that if you have that, then you can use the bank. But that's why we have branches.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I can just imagine like so many of my people whose coordination that's not their thing because they've got sensory-based motor issues. So trying to coordinate and organize and do the visual perception because you've got to hold it a certain like time, space away from the picture and certain, there's a fair degree of coordination that we don't realize until you've got coordination issues or visual perceptual issues to be able to actually do that. It's tough. Yeah, the world is definitely getting tougher in some respects. For anybody who is going back to our original word, neurodivergent, or not even just having to keep up in the technological world that is causing us to do things differently and causing us to have extra effects.
So I guess for sensory healthy banking, we might suggest be conscious of the fact it's finance, therefore you might be a little bit more heightened. So how would you calm yourself down before you make the phone call to the bank about the fact they've just cancelled something that you've got the money for that you know is there, but they said it's not, and you get really frustrated? How do you not actual situation, but how do you help someone with that one?
Walk, stand up, do your deep breathing beforehand, or blow some balloons. Go and and try and diffuse what's going on. If you can, go and listen to some comedy if you're in that mood, or you sometimes going just too far too quickly to try and reduce kind of like stress levels is too far a thing, but. Find whatever you can that makes you feel good and try and just ignore all that for a minute. Bring those arousal levels down. Do something that you really enjoy. Pamper yourself a little bit, even if it's 5 minutes. And if nothing else, go and just blow some bubbles or do some breathing out, or go and wash the windows by breathing out on them and then wiping down just to get that blow and use the air to help calm your system.
And I guess if you're having real problems with your particular bank, because it's quite easy to switch bank these days, it's not a lot of work on your part. Go and find some other banks and say, how do you deal with this situation? If I'm going to ring you, will you understand what I'm saying? How does that work? How easy is it for me to ring someone and speak to a real person, not an AI robot that has no clue what I'm talking about? How easy is that? And some banks will be better than others in certain respects and areas and not so much in others. So perhaps even the more extreme version would be move to a better bank for your sensory health and your sanity. Perhaps.
Absolutely. A good quote there, Mr. B.
A bit extreme, but hey, sometimes we need to take extreme measures for our health. Right. If you want to contact Laure Jackson, two things you can do. One, you can email us, hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org, or you can go to the website, www.pure247radio.org/ALJ for Laure Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you.
3 Point Pure? No bad language, nothing immoral, nothing illegal. Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we make sure we're always 3 Point Pure. That means music without bad language and songs that don't promote anything illegal or immoral. If that sounds like something you enjoy, then support us financially so others can enjoy it too. Just head over to pure247radio.org/donate. That's pure247radio.org/donate and help us make the world a better place with our 3 Point Pure standards. Providing something for free costs somebody something, but doing nothing costs someone something too. So support us financially and let's walk together and brighten the lives of others. Everything we do at Pure 24/7 Radio is funded by your donations. Thank you.